Right, are you ready to do Challenge Josh, Neil?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I haven't got a pen, so I'm going to... I was going to say, shall I write my answers on Word, but then will I be accused of cheating?
Listen, these darts players have had to perform at home in their own front rooms, you know, with people watching, and now we're asking you to do a Challenge Josh in your own front room or in your bedroom, and you're going to
Will I
pieces
need a
already.
pen, do you think, Neil, or do you reckon
No.
I'll be all right without a pen?
You'll be all right without a pen.
Okie doke.
Are we really having this conversation?
There's going to be some long answers you need to give, so...
Right.
Long answers?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lovely. Okie doke.
Right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey the Swan, and you're listening to Josh Dartistry.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to what is episode 23 of the Josh's Dartistry podcast. And yeah, we're bringing you a full-blown podcast, not just your scrappy old bounce out this week. It's the full-blown show where we're going to bring you all the bells and whistles of the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Now then, before we do that, let's introduce you to the team on the screen. We are still practicing social distancing and isolation and all that, so this is taking part via Zoom. But joining me on the Zoom chat, first of all, it's Josh Gorton. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening, John. How are we?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Been a little bit busier over the last couple of weeks with a little bit of work. Back involved in the Sky Sports team, which is good stuff, keeping me occupied. So yeah, I can't complain. Yourself? I'm
all right, mate. I'm all right. Now, we'll discover this as we go through the podcast this evening. I've not been majorly in touch with the home tour, the Modus Live League and all that kind of stuff, but that's what we've got you for, Josh. That's your job, so that's not a problem.
Indeed.
But from being aware of what's been going on via social media or having conversations with yourself, I think it's fair to say that darts is probably the sport that has suffered the least during lockdown. Is that a fair comment, do you think?
I think very fair comment. I mean, nothing is going to be a substitute for the Premier League of darts and the atmosphere generated at these major events. But in terms of actual darts, I think there's been more darts on during the lockdown period than we would have usually had in a regular season. So, yeah, the darts hasn't suffered at all in that respect.
I think you're right. It's been a fantastic effort from all involved. Let's introduce you to the third man in this wheel. It's Statsman, Mr. Neil Connor. How are you, Neil?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, John. Good, thank you.
Good. Welcome along. I see you've got your Liverpool Football Club hat on there, the LFC. Still waiting on that trophy, Neil?
Yep, hopefully now won't be too long. Now the German league is up and running. Hopefully everything will be positive after the first couple of games of that, and other countries will follow suit. But obviously it needs to be safe before we can even consider it. But yeah, hopefully the trophy will be on its way at some point in the future.
Oh, I'm sure it will. And Neil, you heard me there mention to Josh the level of and the quality and the quantity. The quantity, really, we'll get onto the quality shortly, but the quantity of darts for the darts fan being able to check out has been plentiful, has it not?
It has, and I think it's great that Modus and the PDC have gone to great lengths to keep people entertained. I was lucky enough to see a 9-darter early on in the PDC tournament. And I think, as I say, I think it's a great effort on their part that they've kept the players playing, they've kept their audience entertained as much as they can. On the whole, I think it's been good, and it's been something to bet on as well.
always the crucial point. We'll have a little chat about what are the odds a little bit later on this evening. Now then, Josh, plenty to talk about. You sent through a little agenda, as you always do for our podcasts. We've got PDC Home Tours, we've got Modus Live Leagues, we've got darts at home, charity matches, a real plethora of darts to discuss, and you'll be giving us all the very latest on all of those, won't you?
Indeed, yeah. I think the other day, John, I think it might have been Friday or Thursday, there were 45 different darts matches in one day, all from various PDC Home Tour, Modus Leagues. It was just incredible, the amount of darts in one day.
Okay, and then once you've brought us up to speed, mainly me up to speed, in fact, you also, Josh, a couple of days ago managed to have a chat with Jeffrey Deswan, didn't you?
Yeah, it was about a couple of weeks ago now, John. I think it was talking about Jeffrey ahead of his appearance in the PDC Home Tour. He then had to pull out, as we all know, through injury. So we wish Jeffrey well. But yeah, it was good to chat to him about, how he's coping in lockdown, his aim for the rest of the season, his concerns maybe about how it could affect his ranking position, having no darts, and his hopes and aspirations to become a future world champion. So yeah, interesting chat with Jeffrey later on.
And one of the main reasons we can call this a full Josh's Dartistry podcast episode is because this will see the return of Challenge Josh, Neil.
Yes, it will. There was some discussion. Well, there wasn't any discussion, actually. Josh said he wasn't keen to include it and came up with all sorts of excuses.
He did. That was a weird conversation.
So I've researched extra hard this week to make it even extra valuable and extra hard.
He did try and get out of that one, didn't he? But I'm glad you've nailed your colours to the mast, Neil, and we are going to proceed with that. Josh, we've got a couple of news stories as well emanating from PDC and also the BDO as well, mate. Lots to talk about there.
Yeah, plenty of talking points from the BDO. We discussed on the last episode, I think, John, Des Jacqueline's resignation. As people will know, he's now back at the helm and back as BDO chairman. And we've got plenty of PDC news about upcoming tournaments. And the PDC issued a statement last week about the World Match Play. So we'll be discussing that in more depth later on.
Excellent stuff. Josh, I know you put out a shout on social media and we've had some questions come in. So we'll be putting those questions to all three of us right at the end of the show. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, as ever, thank you for your support and checking out the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Don't forget to check out Josh's website, www.joshisdartistry.com. You can find the podcast on all your good podcast providers, whether that's Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, all your usual places. So check that out. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. And you can also check out Josh's Facebook page as well. Just pop along to Facebook and do a little search. Anyway, with that said, here we go with episode number 23 of the Josh's Dartistry podcast. You're listening to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook, the Josh's Dartistry page. You can also follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. And you can also go to our website, www.joshisdartistry.com, for all the latest news, blogs and information on the world of darts. Don't forget you can also call us and leave us a message on our voicemail box. That's 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329. Call our voicemail box, leave us a message, leave us a question, and we may play it on the show. Now back to the show.
This is Wayne Mardle, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, Josh, bring us right up to date. Where do you want to start? PDC Home Tour, I suppose.
Yeah, the PDC Home Tour seems the best place to start now, John. We're now on night 30. We've only got 2 more nights of the initial first phase to go. There's been some tremendous darts, as Neil alluded to earlier on, and plenty of shocks as well. We started last episode by discussing that the PDC have invited all 128 tour card holders to compete because the PDC chief exec, Matt Porter, said it would have been easy just to set up 8 or 9 players, almost like a mini Premier League from home, and maybe the quality of the streams would have been better, but they wanted to introduce something that gave all tour card holders the opportunity to play and earn a little bit of an appearance fee as well. So I think 101 of the 128 tour card holders opted to compete. A few big names missed out, either through they weren't able to play or just opted not to. So the likes of Michael van Gerwen, Daryl Gurney, Mensur Silovic, Adrian Lewis, they all missed out. One of the biggest stories of the home tour really was Luke Woodhouse on night 2, hit a fantastic 9 darter. I think you saw it live, didn't you, Neil? I missed
it.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable.
It was from his own kitchen. Can you believe that? With we've seen plenty of 9 darters on the PDC tour before, but never from someone's kitchen. So that was a little bit of history.
It's going to be funny, isn't it? Because you can go on YouTube and they put these 9 dart compilations together. You know, every 9 dart ever hit in the Worlds, or every PDC 9 dart live televised one. Do you think that one will be included in the compilation videos we see on YouTube in the future?
I think it has to. I mean, it's a piece of history, John. I mean, who's ever seen a live 9 darter on a stream from a kitchen? I haven't before. So,
well, Taylor nearly did it from his living room the other night, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, missed double 12 against Martin Adams, and we saw Arron Monk in the Modus League. I think 3 weeks ago now. He hit one against I can't remember who it was against now, but yeah, Arron Monk hit one. Maybe Jason Askew, I'm not too sure, but yeah. So fantastic performance from Luke Woodhouse, beating Gerwen Price 5-0 on that occasion. So that was one of the moments of the home tour so far. The performance of the home tour has to be Jose de Souza. Very talented Portuguese player, won a couple of pro tours at the end of last year. He averaged over 104 for the entire tournament, dropping just one leg a few nights ago, beating Keegan Brown and Robert Thornton 5-0. So that takes some doing. But I think the biggest thing we've seen in the home tour is that it's been a real leveller, because a lot of the big players are used to playing on the big TV tournaments, the big stage. But the home tour's more of a sterile environment, a bit like the pro tour. You've got no crowd noise. It's a unique thing for everybody. You know, a lot of the big players in the TV events, they have the advantage of experience, but they haven't got that here. And we've seen a lot of upsets. Out of the 29 group winners so far, 12 of those are ranked outside the world's top 64, and 7 are ranked outside the world's top 100, which illustrates a point. And we've also got 11 different nationalities represented in the last 32 so far, with the potential for more to add, because we've got Christoph Ratajski playing on Monday night. So we've got a lot of different nationalities. It really does just illustrate the global nature of the sport now, which is great. And only 3 of the world's top 10 are through to the last 32 as we speak. But we've got Gary Anderson in action tonight on Saturday. Gerwen Price on Sunday gets a second chance, as do Peter Wright, because as only 101 tour card holders opted to compete, what the PDC have done is they've invited back the players who were runner-up in their respective groups based on order of merit ranking. So the likes of Michael Smith, who missed out last night, Peter Wright and Gerwen Price have got a second chance because they didn't qualify from the initial night.
And Josh, all of this has been streamed on the PDC website. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, on PDC TV for free. If you hadn't subscribed before the tournament, you could subscribe, but you wouldn't be charged anything. So it's a good gesture from the PDC. There were a few initial technical difficulties because I can't remember the exact figure, John, but I think on the opening night, there were thousands and thousands of people logging on to PDC TV who maybe ordinarily wouldn't log in for a Pro Tour or European Tour event. So there are a few technical difficulties early on, and they are reliant, of course, on the players' technology from wherever they're playing. We've seen players in Hong Kong, Australia, you name it, all over the world. So I think the quality of the stream has improved as the tournament's gone on. I think it's now a very good product. And Dan Dawson has been the host and MC and has done a terrific job throughout the tournament. So it's been a good watch.
Neil, it probably wasn't logistically possible, but just thinking out loud, do you think Sky Sports maybe missed a trick not broadcasting this every night?
Possibly, but I think it's on the Sky Sports app. But I'm sure if they'd have got it on the main channels, on people's televisions, they probably would have got a bit more of an audience. I don't know how feasible it is to get cameras into people's houses. You do see it for certain things. You do see newsreaders, etc., working from home, and it's very clear. So whether that's a camera, but I don't really understand, the logistical issues. But I think yes, they probably could have got more viewers had it have been filmed for the main TV channels.
It was quite a brave, Josh, I thought, of the PDC to launch such a competition. Because we'd never be sure about whether the Wi-Fi was going to be good enough. Fortunately, I think 99% of it has been absolutely fantastic quality and perfectly watchable. But not only was he brave to launch a competition based on that, but the amount of people taking part in the competition, it's an enormous competition. And at the time when they announced it, none of us were sure when lockdown was going to be ending. Obviously we're still in some form of lockdown at the moment, but yeah, it's been a long old tournament, isn't it? And taken a long time to complete.
It has, yeah. And I think in terms of the quality of the stream, I think it's been a learning experience for everyone because we're in unique and unprecedented times. So I think the first couple of nights, there were a couple of games. I think the opening night, I did struggle a little bit to follow a lot of it in terms of the cameras. But I think as the nights have improved, I think the quality of not just the darts, but also the stream has improved. So I think it's been a good watch. I can understand why it wasn't broadcast on Sky Sports, because if you look at some of the darts at home that Paddy Power and Target Darts have devised, I think the quality in terms of camera work and just the overall product there has been of such a high standard. And I think the PDC have admitted it's not the best quality in the world, but they wanted to provide for all their tour guide holders because there are difficult and uncertain times for a lot of these players who aren't earning any money at the moment, or they're not getting any competitive darts. So I think if the PDC had maybe devised, I don't know, a 10-man tournament like the Premier League, for example, that would have maybe been a better quality of stream. But again, then you're neglecting over 100 tour card holders. So I think they've made the right decision in that respect to include everyone.
It wasn't just the quality of the stream, though, was it? It was sometimes the angle that whether they were using phones or iPads, it sometimes wasn't easy to see
And the lighting, I think, as well, wasn't it?
What beds were being hit. But it's not perfect. But as you say, it's got the players playing, and it's got something for people to watch.
I think a certain amount of trust is involved as well. If you throw your minds back to when we played Lord of the Board on the Josh's Dartistry podcast last year, there was a certain level of trust that was required to take part in that, and I'm sure all the players taking part in the PDC Home Tour have employed that as well. Josh, let's move it on. Let's have a look at the Modus Live League, which again has created quite a stir on social media.
Yeah, well, the Modus League was actually set up a couple of weeks before the PDC Home Tour, John. We had a 6-player field originally. That were the likes of Raymond van Barneveld, Paul Nicholson, Mark Webster, and David Evans and Wessel Nijman, two of which David and Wessel have been arguably two of the standout players. They're still playing now in week 6 of the Modus League. So that's been a real success. It's been a bit easier in comparing that to the PDC because each week they're having maybe 6 of the 8 same players week in, week out. So over the last week, I think Modus has introduced a split screen. So you can actually see the players throwing and not just retrieving the darts, because ordinarily on the PDC Home Tour, you're just watching the players retrieve their darts. You can't actually see them throwing. I think that's added a massive impact.
Yeah.
From a viewing perspective. I've really enjoyed watching the players from their own home environments. But you can understand why the PDC couldn't employ that, because logistically trying to provide the cameras and technology for 100 players, it just isn't feasible. But that's been really good to watch. And yeah, the Modus League's been a great success. And I think it's done wonders for a lot of the players who maybe aren't on the PDC Tour, who've lost their way a little bit, because the PDC Tour card holders can't play in the Modus League because they're contracted to the PDC. They can't play in other streaming events, which is why the likes of Barney, Phil Taylor, Fallon Sherrick, Martin Adams have all played, because they're not PDC Tour card holders. We've had some big names in it, as we've seen. I think it's been a really, really good watch. I've enjoyed the PDC and the Modus sections. I think, yeah, testament goes out to those behind it, because it's been a great success, I think.
Josh, who was the commentary team for both of these competitions? Who was the commentary team for the PDC Home Tour, and who was on the Modus Live League?
Well, Dan Dawson's been hosting every single night at the PDC Home Tour, done a terrific job. The Modus commentary has been a number of people, really. Chris Mason's been quite prominent doing the commentary. We also have Paul Nicholson and Mark Webster as well. So those three have kind of shared the commentary duty throughout the tournament.
There's someone with Chris Mason, Josh, I think, who's been integral to organising it.
Yeah, Phil Bars. A lot of people will know Phil from his work at Live Darts. He's done a number of great interviews with a number of the players as well in this lockdown period. Yeah, Phil's been a massive part of it, and credit goes out to him. And I think George Noble as well, PDC referee, has also been important behind the scenes making this tick. So yeah, they've done a terrific job. I've really enjoyed it.
Excellent stuff. Well, shout out to everyone involved in the Modus Live League. Josh, some of the darts that I caught, I did manage to watch the Taylor versus Sherrick game on Thursday in the soft tip edition of Darts at Home. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, we mentioned on the last episode, or maybe the episode previous, we saw Phil Taylor and Raymond van Barneveld playing the first ever Darts at Home. And that was brought by Paddy Power and Target Darts. And it was basically to raise money for our NHS. So Paddy Power decided to donate £1,000 per maximum hit in the Taylor-Barney game, which was £15,000 raised. As we know, Barney ran out a 7-6 winner. So last week, we saw Phil Taylor return again to play the women's world champion, Mikuru Suzuki. And Phil ran out a 7-5 winner. Wasn't as good a standard as maybe the Taylor-Barney game, but still a good watch. It was live on Sky Sports, as well as Target and Paddy Power's YouTube channels. I think that raised around about £11,000 for the NHS and Mikuru Suzuki's charity, which was, I think, Peace Wins back in Japan. But yeah, I think last Thursday, as you mentioned, John, I think it was a game of the Darts at Home series so far between Phil and Fallon Sherrick. We've seen them play a couple of times on the Modus streams, and Phil's won both games, but Sherrick's been leading on both occasions, and history repeated itself here. Just the averages I'm going to mention in a minute. Of course, you have to mention the soft tip. It is different. In the soft tip game, the dimensions of the treble are a lot bigger, and the doubles as well. So it's conducive to bigger averages, plenty of 180s and big finishes. But even so, the standard was still absolutely fantastic between the pair. Fallon lost with an average of 121.61. Phil winning with 116.68 average. I think Fallon was 5-3 up, and then Phil got it back to 5-all. Fallon was 7 darts into the 9-darter in leg 11 and 6 darts into the 9-darter in the last leg, but still lost. Phil taking out a 167 finish on the ball to win it. But most importantly, they raised £16,200 for the NHS because, as well as Paddy Power donating £1,000 per 180 hit, they also donated an extra £200 every time one of the players hit a double at their first attempt. So great gesture from them and great work from Phil and Fallon. I've really enjoyed the Darts at Home series. I think the quality in terms of not only the play, but also the coverage. We've had Wayne Mardle and Stuart Pike on commentary. It's been a really professionally devised product, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next few Darts at Home challenges.
Yeah, for me, Neil, the Darts at Home tournament has been the sort of, I don't know, the exhibitionist glamour, if you like, of all the darts that I've seen. With some top names, former players, up and coming players, and the standard of the couple of the Taylor games that I've seen have been right up there. Now, that is always going to lead to questions about the future of the legend that is known as Philip Taylor. Plenty of buzz this week online and in the newspapers regarding Phil and his future, and would he still be competing for titles if he came out of retirement? It's a question that gets asked a lot, but it's a question that's been asked a hell of a lot more this week, Neil.
Yeah, and I think last Sunday when we were watching, I was messaging Josh during the Modus League Champions Series, and Taylor was unbelievable. I think he was averaging 120 for some time, wasn't he? In Josh, in
about
one
6
of the
legs
games.
in, yeah.
Yeah, and he was playing unbelievably. Just missed out on a 9-darter, and I think it was one of the commentary team or Chris Mason that commented to say that he'd still very much be challenging for the biggest prizes in darts. So I did say to Josh, I can see that being on the cards, because just judging by his demeanour during the games as well, he's very competitive. I just saw something that made me think, yeah, I can see a comeback on the cards here.
I would love to see Phil Taylor come back. I mean, whether you love or hate the man, he's box office, isn't he? And I think darts is in a fantastic place. I don't think darts necessarily needs Phil Taylor, but I do think darts will be enhanced as a result of his return. But I can't see him coming back for anything permanent. I can maybe see him trying to qualify for the UK Open. There was rumours he was going to enter the UK Open qualifiers this year, but I think injury and obviously the coronavirus put a stop to that. But I just think if Phil was going to have to come back, he'd have to go through qualifying school. He'd then have to play on the Pro Tour week in, week out to qualify for the major events and get his ranking up. And I'm not sure he's got the hunger to do that, because he's going to be 60 in August, and he's, by his own admission, he says he didn't play any Pro Tour events in the last couple of years because he said he couldn't hack it each day. When the Pro Tour starts at 12 o'clock, but you're having to get up and practice from about 10 o'clock. If you get to the final, it's still going about 5:30, and he said his body cannot take it, and the travelling, that's the key thing.
Can he play in the Premier League?
Well, as a challenger, maybe Neil. I think, who knows? I mean, John devised his idea, didn't he, about the Premier League challenges this year, and he said about having Phil Taylor as one. I think the logistics for that could be difficult, but I mean, it would be great to watch. But I think the online darts suited Phil down to a T, because no one's doubting his ability, and I think he's been relaxed, he's been enjoying it, but also he hasn't got to travel. He's literally playing in his front room, isn't he? So there's no fatigue, no tiredness. He can win the game, average 110, and 5 minutes later be having a nice cup of coffee on his settee. So
there's no reason, though, with regards to the Premier League, there's no reason he couldn't be a pick rather than a challenger.
Well, there is, because he's not a tour card holder, John.
I didn't think you had to be a tour card holder. I thought the Premier League was an exhibition.
Well, it's a non-ranking event, but Barry Hearn has always said that they cannot pick a player permanently for the Premier League if they're not a tour card holder. We know Fallon Sherrick isn't. She was introduced as a challenger this year, but if you're going to make an exception for anyone, John, it would be Phil Taylor, wouldn't it?
Of course it would.
But I can imagine players maybe ranked number 9 or 10 in the world would not be best pleased if a certain Mr. Phil came back.
But we've seen that before. We've seen number 11 and 12 in the world get a place over number 9 and 10 in the world. It happens frequently. That's what the yearly discussion about the Premier League is.
It is, John, but it doesn't happen to someone who's not a current player. That's the thing, and someone who's not a tour card holder. I mean, I think if Phil was still playing now, he'd still be challenging for titles, but I just think it's the fatigue. It's such a grueling schedule now.
Yeah.
I think 40 weeks of the year they're playing competitive tournaments. And when Phil was still ranked inside the top 8, which he always was, even in his last year, I think the lowest he went was number 8. So he was still guaranteed a spot in every single TV event. He didn't have to play the Pro Tour, but he'd have to start from the bottom and play week in, week out. And that is tough going, even for someone of Phil's quality. And I think he would struggle to work his way back up. But if you put him in a tournament, I don't know, in 3 months' time on the World Match Play, for example, and you said, right, Phil, you got a spot, I have no doubt he would contend and be a major threat. But it's just getting himself into the position. I think he would struggle with at his age now, coming up to 60 years old. I don't think he's got the hunger for it full time.
I think you're right. I think the physicality of it is the biggest thing. I would back him though to qualify from Q School, Josh. I fancy over that week-long period, if Phil applied himself for a week-long Q School, I think I'd back Phil to get a tour card.
I think he'd get one on the first day, to be honest, John. But yeah. I just think it's he would have to play pretty much every Pro Tour event and every European Tour event, which he did not do for any of his last 2 years of his career. And bearing in mind he's now been retired for over 2 years, it is tough. You're having to play 6 or 7 games in a day, and the standard is so high on the Pro Tour. He'd be unseeded as well, so he could play Marco van Gerwen in the first round of a Pro Tour. Peter Wright, Gerwen, Price. Of course he could beat them, but it'll be very tough, and I'm just not sure he'd have not even the hunger, but I just think it would be too tough for him. I think if you put him in a tournament, like I say, if you said to Phil, you've got entry for all the major tournaments this year, you'd have a very good go and compete and maybe even win one of them. But I just think it'll be too much to ask for him to go back to the Pro Tour.
But if you look at all the darts at home stuff, has anyone else been at his level consistently?
It's tough to say because, the important thing is Martin Adams was fantastic, wasn't it? But I think if you look at these other appearances in the Modus League, I think he won 4 out of 5 of his opening night, lost to Boris Koltsov, but won the other 4 games. And then he lost to Wessel, Nijman and David Evans in the other nights. He won 3 out of 5. To be fair, last Sunday, though, Neil, was the best he played by quite some margin in the Champions Series. And obviously, the soft tip, he has been fantastic in it, but the averages are inflated. They're not really an accurate guide because a lot of the players could be averaging high hundreds in the soft tip format. So I've got no doubt that Phil's still good enough. It's got the ability, and I think the mental side of the game, he still hasn't lost that hunger, as you mentioned, and that competitive edge. Even when he was playing Fallon Sherritt, you could see he was determined not to lose that game, even on a soft tip format. So I think he's got that.
I was going to say, how remarkable was she that night? Because she was playing Anastasia, I think, wasn't she? And the dog started barking while she was. And she went away and came back, hit the double first dart, and then I think her son came down the stairs. So she had a real working from home experience, but didn't phase her and didn't destroy her concentration one bit.
No, she's been terrific. I think she won one of the nights a few weeks ago, one of the Modus Leagues. I think over the last couple of days, she came second and then third out of 7 players. So it's done her the world of good. I do feel for Fallon Sherritt because she had so many plans this year on the back of her World Championship success. Obviously qualified for the UK Open, played as a Premier League challenger, but she was due to play in the World Series, wasn't she? In New York and Australia, and that's all been put on hold now. So she should still get the opportunity next year. But the amount of interest in her and on the exhibition circuit in particular, it would have been a great year for her, and that's obviously been curtailed. But she's made the most of the lockdown, and yeah, as you mentioned, that was a really entertaining game against Anastasia. I think it was 100 checkout, wasn't it, Neil? She hit the treble 20. The dog was barking. She came back 15 seconds later, pinned it first dart.
Yeah,
lads, let's move it. Let's move it away from Phil Taylor. Neil, a question I wanted to ask you. It's very easy for online darts and darts at home to be popular with an audience that is, let's be honest, facing lockdown and starved of entertainment. Will that hunger for darts in that format remain after we're all allowed to go back to work? Is it something that you can see us continuing with as a little... I mean, nothing will replace, of course, the thrill of the crowd. But do you see darts at home, online darts, having a place in the sport as we move forward?
I'd like to think there is. And maybe that is in the form of a home tour event. So, I can't imagine it will be long before darts is allowed to start going back to normal. I'm sure they'll come up with a way like they are for other sports to sort it out. But I think with the creativity that people have shown and the amount of people that have enjoyed this, I'd like to see some kind of home tour event kept in the calendar going forward now.
Josh, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Neil, really, John. I think, don't get me wrong, nothing separates watching live darts in front of a big crowd on TV, the whole razzmatazz and the product. But I think it's been really positive, really innovative. I think for a lot of the players, it's going to provide fantastic preparation for when the competitive darts does return. Because there'll be some players who have been a little bit complacent in this period. There will have been some who haven't really been practicing or putting the work in. You see others like David Evans, he got to the BDO World Quarterfinals in January. He's been playing non-stop, and Wessel Nijman, I mentioned them earlier. They've been playing for 6 weeks consecutively in the Modus League. Now, Wessel's tailed off a little bit this year, but David Evans has been playing world-class darts week in, week out. They're going to be so match sharp and so confident when the darts does return that they're going to be really hard to stop. And I think it's going to be fantastic for them. I saw Paul Nicholson do a column for Sporting Life earlier in the week, and he suggested maybe an online world championship could be the first of its kind. Now, that would be something really interesting, and that could see the former players like Phil Taylor, Martin Adams, Barney even competing in an online world championship, the first of its kind. That could be something that's still done on a yearly basis. But I think when darts can return, I think the online popularity might dwindle a little bit, but I still think it's going to be prominent. We've also seen the WDF, by the way, that we haven't mentioned yet. They've done the Remote Darts League. They did that about 3 weeks ago, and that's returning again on Monday. And that's seen the likes of Tony O'Shea, Daryl Fitton, Paul Hogan, John Boy Walton, a lot of former BDO players. Wes Newton played in it as well. So that's been great fun. But I would like to see online darts return, but obviously not at the expense of the major darts events. But it could be some while yet before we're allowed crowds and venues with all the social distancing restrictions. So who knows?
Neil, could we enter Josh into the World Online Darts Championships? What do you reckon?
I'd like to. I wanted to enter the UK Open qualifier. And I know he wasn't keen.
No, but online he doesn't even have to leave the comfort of his home. He can just throw the darts in his room, and you never know. We could have a world champion on the podcast.
But yeah, indeed. But what I would say is that Josh and myself have had some very competitive games of late, and there isn't a big difference, Josh, in the standard, is there? So
no, exactly. So what we're saying is, if I've got to enter it, serve you, Neil.
I think I've got more of the big game mentality than he has.
So you're a little bit mentally stronger.
Yep.
I do crumble a little bit under pressure, I have to say, but I can't even say it's under the big stage. It's just it's in my own bedroom. But we've had some decent games, to be fair, Neil. Usually your score has been a little bit better than mine, but my doubling's bailed me out, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had 2 or 3 really good games, haven't we?
Yeah, all pretty competitive and tight.
Yeah, they've all gone. They're normally best of 3 sets, and one of us normally comes out winning 2-1 in the final leg. So
yeah, I don't think we've had a straight set game yet.
No, we haven't.
All right, let's move it on. No one wants to hear about you two playing darts against each other. We'd rather hear about Phil Taylor and, of course, the current crop of players. But well done, Josh. Thanks for giving us that roundup of everything that's been going on while we're in lockdown. That is your darting roundup.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter @Josh's Dartistry, or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for the latest news and insight to the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329. Leave us a message and we may play it on air. Now back to the show.
This is Paul Nicholson, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Right, and welcome back to the show. Josh, at the top of the show, you mentioned that you managed to speak to Jeffrey Deswan a couple of weeks ago. How did that go? Yeah,
it was a good chat. John enjoyed speaking to Jeffrey. He was keeping busy. He's still working in lockdown, as we'll find out shortly. Unfortunately, now not competing in the PDC Home Tour due to injury, but he was very interested on what's been a frustrating period for him, missing out on the Premier League and other tournaments, and his hopes for when the darts returns and his targets for the coming years. So, yeah, good listen.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Well, guys, I'm delighted to be joined here by former World Match Play semi-finalist Jeffrey Deswan. Jeffrey, many thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate.
So, Jeffrey, it's a difficult period for everyone at the moment with this coronavirus crisis, but how's it affecting you over in Holland and how are you keeping busy?
Well, luckily I am, because we can still work in Holland. If you're not feeling sick, you can still go to work. So yeah, that is what I'm doing now, and I'm lucky to do that.
So what are you doing in terms of work at the moment?
Well, I'm working at a stock department to packing stuff to ship to ships, and packing like parts and everything like that. So we're sending that over to the ship to repair.
No, excellent stuff. It's good to keep busy in this period. But we've seen over the last week or so the PDC have launched their home tour, and I know quite a few Dutchmen, Marco van Gerwen and Vincent van der Vault, they've said they won't be participating. Are you going to be taking part in the home tour?
Yeah, I'm going to participate on the home tour. I don't know yet when I'm playing, but I'm going to participate.
We know this situation is awfully worrying for everyone, but it must be really frustrating for you for a number of reasons, because you had the Premier League in Rotterdam to look forward to, and also a possible World Cup debut.
Yeah, I know. It's a strange time now, and it's sad for me that I can't play the Premier League in Rotterdam and also the World Cup, but. We'll see what happens. When everything is going the good way, and we'll see.
And I mean, the World Cup, although it's been postponed, it could still be held potentially later on in the year. I mean, how much would it mean to represent Holland in the World Cup? Has it always been a dream of yours?
Of course, it has been a dream. When I was young, I watched always like Raymond playing with Michael, and of course, it's a dream to participate in that kind of tournament, and it will be lovely if it could be this year, maybe later on.
When the Premier League returns, you may not be playing in Rotterdam, of course, but you should still have an appearance as a contender, and it'll be your second year in a row you've played as a contender now. So how far away do you think you are from becoming maybe a permanent player in the Premier League in a couple of years, maybe?
Yeah, well, I really don't know. I think it depends on if I get maybe in the top 16 or maybe a little bit above that. But I really don't know, because of now the tournament is postponed to another date. So I really don't know if I can maybe get to the top 16, and we'll see if Barry Hearns takes me. You never know.
Because there's no competitions at the moment, there's also no exhibitions where I know a lot of the players earn their money. So it must be quite a worrying period financially for you all.
Well, the look I still have my work, so I don't need the money from the darts. I'm still working, and I can still pay everything from the salary I've earned with work.
I think you're number 21 in the world now, Jeffrey. I mean, I think Johnny Clayton, who's number 16, he still works, I know, full time. But have you ever considered? Obviously, it's a good time to be working, but have you got any plans in the future to maybe go full time in terms of the darts, to focus and maybe try and go as high as you can in the rankings?
Yeah, of course I think about that. If I could maybe reach the top 16 or top 8, then you can't work with when you get to Premier League, the World Series, and there's no more time to work the whole week. And I think at that time, when I'm playing like the Premier League every week or playing the World Series, then it's a time to say, when I quit work and start playing darts or professionally.
You touched on it a minute ago in terms of being unsure when the darts will resume, but at the moment, all the players that you're currently losing money on your world rankings because you're not playing any tournaments. Now, we don't know whether the World Match Play will take place in July, but the way the Order of Merit works, it's obviously the 2-year system, and 2 years ago you reached the semi-finals there. So if the match play doesn't go ahead, you'll end up losing, as it stands, the 30,000 on your ranking. So would you like to see the PDC maybe introduce a freeze to kind of halt the world rankings? Because otherwise players are losing money and it's not your fault.
I really don't know what they're going to do about that, of course, if the World Match Play doesn't go on this year, I don't know what's going to happen with the money. I think it's maybe not fair because of you can't do anything about it because of the Corona period, but I really don't know what is the fair thing for everyone,
Yeah, and that World Match Play 2 years ago, it was your first real big breakthrough on TV, obviously beating Michael van Gerwen, Adrian Lewis and Dave Chisnell. Just how much of a turning point was that for you in your career? How much belief did that give you?
Well, that was a big turn in my career, People have seen me, playing all the time, that good standard level, and to reach the semi-final is good for your confidence, and it gives you an opportunity to think from, now I'm here and just let the people see what I can do.
Just a few months before that, you lost your tour card at the end of 2017, and I believe I'm right in saying you were close to bankruptcy. So how tough was that for you, and how proud are you now of how far you've come since then?
Well, that year was really tough for me, because I didn't earn something with darts. I didn't work as well, so, the money's getting down and down, and you lost some money on, how you say that, on invoices and some things like that.
Yeah.
And, I'm starting to get nothing, and that's why I'm almost like bankrupt. And at the end of that year, my manager says, "Well, come working at my company, and you get a salary to pay everything." And and that's the thing that I'm starting playing well again, and that's helped me a lot.
We just mentioned the World Match Play there. You've got a couple of Pro Tour wins since then, and you've had some great performances on TV, but you haven't reached a TV semi-final since that World Match Play. Why do you think the reason for that is?
I really don't know. No, I really don't know. It's darts is such a strange thing. It's sometimes you're playing so well, and sometimes you can't hit that the right things at the right moments. And that's why darts is such a different sport. I really don't know.
And at the recent World Championship, you lost in the last 16, but you performed really well. You had the highest average of the tournament against Dave Chisnell in the third round. Then you lost to 4-3 to Peter Wright. Now, we all know what happened with Peter going on to win it. Do you kind of look back at that match thinking, if I won that, who knows, I could have been world champion?
Yeah, but that's it. You never know what can happen. If I have beaten Peter, maybe I will lift a trophy at 1 January. It's you can't know it.
And at the World Championship, you were due to meet Raymond van Barneveld in the second round. That was the match that everyone was kind of predicting in Raymond's last year. And we know that you and Raymond were quite close. I think he sponsored you earlier in your career. So I suppose it must have been tough, because obviously you wanted just to win for yourself and progress against Darren. But were you hoping to play Raymond in his last ever World Championship?
Well, it has been nice if I could play him in his last World Championships. And, the thing was because Raymond and I were very close friends, and it has been it could be a tough game because it's your friends and kinds of that. But when you're playing at the board, you don't have friends, and you have to play your own game.
And as I mentioned earlier, you're closing in on the world's top 20 now. As you mentioned, you're hoping to get into the top 16 maybe when the darts resumes. But have you set yourself any targets for the rest of the season when you do get back underway?
Well, at the beginning, the target was for me the top 16. But I didn't look forward now because of the coronavirus and everything. I don't even know when the tournament's going to start. So I didn't set a target for this year. I just want to play the tournaments and have some good time at the tournament. And I'm thinking about maybe next year, thinking about the top 16.
No, of course, that's quite sensible. At the last World Championship, again, I remember you doing an interview and you said, who knows, perhaps you could become the next Raymond van Barneveld in the Netherlands. And so many people are tipping you to achieve great things. Just how high do you think you can go? Do you think perhaps world number one in the future, world champion?
Oh, I think I can be a world champion in a couple of years' time. I think I'm capable of it, and it's just all about time. What happens, and hopefully I can do the same thing what I'm doing now, and just going forward and forward.
Well, perfect. We wish you all the very best for that, Jeffrey. It's been great to chat to you today, and stay safe, and hope to see you back on the tour very soon.
Yeah, you too, mate. Cheers for that. Bye.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
And there we go. There's Josh's interview with Jeffrey Deswan. Josh, first of all, it's a real shame he had to pull out of the home tour, seeing as it's been, quite a good success that we were talking about earlier. It's a shame Jeffrey wasn't competing.
Yeah, it is a shame. I mean, obviously, it's an injury issue, so it can't be helped, John. And we wish Jeffrey all the best. I mean, there's never a good time to be injured, but if you're going to be injured, I suppose to get injured during a global pandemic, that is the better time, when there's not any competitive ranking events, because when the PDC Darts does return competitively, there's going to be so many tournaments, I think, congested into a really intensive period. So it's important for Jeffrey that he's fit and firing, ready for that.
Yeah, and you have to feel sorry for him as well with regards to the Rotterdam Premier League and World Cup. I mean, if you're an English footballer, to put it into something that I'm familiar with, if you're an English footballer, I suppose the pinnacle of your career is, I don't know, playing in the FA Cup final at Wembley. Whereas for a Dutch darts player, you know, the Premier League night in Rotterdam, whether you're a player or just a fan of the sport, Josh, it's real hard to miss out on that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I was in Rotterdam last year, John, and Jeffrey did play. He played Rob Cross in a terrific game of darts. He lost 7-5. It was a really competitive game. But I still think Jeffrey will be playing in the Premier League again when it returns, but obviously not in Rotterdam, which is the issue for him. So that's going to be disappointing. And the World Cup, I have heard talk that they're hoping to reschedule the World Cup at a new venue later on in the year. So Jeffrey would still have a chance maybe to play them, but it's quite tight in the rankings between him and Jermaine Wattimena. So at the moment, Jeffrey is a second-ranked Dutchman, and he would be in line to make his debut, but that could all change later on. So it would be nice for Jeffrey to play in the World Cup. He's seen his idols, Michael van Gerwen, Ram van Barneveld, lift the title in previous years. It would be great for him to emulate that. Yeah,
we'll see how that unfolds. And as Jeffrey also mentioned there, Josh, he's dealt with his own personal battles in recent years as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, as he revealed there, about 3 years ago, after losing his tour card at the end of 2017, he was on the verge of bankruptcy, really, having lost his tour card and faced quite an uncertain future. And fortunately, things turned around for him very quickly. But the 2018 World Match Play, that was a catalyst for him, getting to the semi-finals, beating MBG, Adrian Lewis, Dave Chisnell. He hasn't really pushed on in TV events. He's won a couple of pro tours. He's always there and thereabouts, and he's a major threat in every game he plays. He's that talented. We saw that at the World Championships. But for whatever reason, he's been unable to really put a real consistent run of form together in the TV events. But he's on the verge of breaking into the world's top 20, and he's only 24 years of age. He's been around for so long now. But he's still in the fledgling stages of his career, so I've got no doubt he's got a very bright future ahead. He's ambitious, but he's got every reason to be, because he's got the talent in abundance.
Neil, Jeffrey Deswan, his name's been mentioned on this show time and time again. Very, very talented player, and I'm sure he'll be up there in the upper echelons for many years to come.
Yeah, I think 24 is quite a young. We've got some great young darts players, don't get me wrong, but I think 24, with the experience that he's gained, with the tournaments that he's been involved in the past, I don't think there's any doubt that once he gets over the line in one of the bigger tournaments, and I think his confidence increases, that he's got the raw ability to then kick off and be competing at the top level. With the likes of Van Gerwen and Peter Wright.
Okay, well, our thanks go to Jeffrey for taking the time to come on the show and have a little chat with Josh. You're always welcome on the Josh's Dartistry podcast, and we wish you continued success for the rest of the year.
Hi, this is Rod Stud from Sky Sports, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry podcast.
Right then, it's been a long time coming. It's the return of Challenge Josh.
Challenge Josh.
Okay, let's hand you over to a resident quizmaster, Mr. Neil Connor.
Thanks, John. As I said earlier in the show, there was kind of a diversion tactic in respect of in respect of Challenge Josh. So it's made me a bit more determined this week on this episode to try and make sure that he really is put under the cosh.
Have you noticed that he's moved his camera? So all we can see now is his midriff. Yeah. He obviously doesn't want us to see his face while he sweats under the pressure of the questions from Challenge Josh. Oh, he's moved it now. He's moved it back.
I'll move it back when you ask the questions, that's for sure.
So what we try and do with these every week is to try and every episode is we try and make sure that we relate it to something present in terms of the darting world. It's not always possible, but what I've tried to do this week, rather than ask questions about what he's already reported on earlier in the episode, is related to darts at home. So we have 15 questions. They are going to vary in terms of what they are. Some of it may be related to the recent online tournaments that we've seen. Some of it may not. So we will see as we go along.
Bit of a mixed bag, Josh. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I've got to say, it's recent, so I haven't really got an excuse, which makes me even more concerned.
Well, no, I said it's about darts at home. I didn't say it's recent.
Oh, dear me. 1983 from their own living room, no doubt.
Okay, well, let's find out then, shall we? Gentlemen, start your engines. And Neil, if you are ready, let's have question number 1.
Okay, nice gentle start. Why did Gary Anderson withdraw from the PDC Darts at Home Tour?
He withdrew initially because his Wi-Fi wasn't good enough at home in Somerset.
Okay, but he is actually playing tonight, isn't he? He's managed to fix that. So, yep.
Okay, well done, Josh. That is 1 out of 1. Good start, Neil. Let's move it on to question number 2.
Again, nice and easy. Question 2. Who is the sponsor of the PDC Home Tour of Darts?
That is a Unibet.
That is correct. Managed to get a sponsor on board for that, which is very good. Were Unibet offering a market, Josh? Were they on all of these matches?
Yeah, they're offering nightly markets, so they're doing quite a few price boosts on the favourites to win. Obviously, we've seen quite a few underdogs, but Unibet, one of the prime sponsors of the PDC with the Premier League and the World Cup and other tournaments.
Okay, let's move it on. Let's have question number 3.
With the host streaming company apparently oblivious, coverage went live 20 minutes before the opening match. During this period, what was Dan Dawson captured doing?
Oh, my word.
Was it vaping? Was it with his cigarette, or he was smoking with his vape, was it?
That is correct. Pictured smoking with his vape before they went live. Do you know what? The Modus Darts had that problem as well, because they called Chris Mason in a conversation about something or other as well before it went live. So they do have to be careful with these online competitions. And
I think that was intentional. I think that was a preview, though. With
maybe. But I think that was reported. I read that in The Guardian.
Yeah, I did.
But yeah, and they said that Peter Wright was also cracking open a bottle of Chardonnay as well, I think.
Brilliant.
Okay, so that's 4 out of 4, I believe, is it?
No, 3 out of 3.
3 out of 3. Okay, let's move it on then to question number 4.
Okay, meanwhile, in Northern Ireland, Daryl Gurney excused himself. Can you tell me why?
Was it because I think his dartboard's positioned on the landing, and if people would have to go to the toilet, he wouldn't be able to run because people would have to go to the toilet or something?
You sort of begrudgingly gave your thumbs up there, Neil.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair answer. So Gurney, in the interest of promoting domestic harmony, explained that his home setup involved him having to stand in an upstairs corridor with one leg inside the bathroom in a state of affairs that would preclude any of his immediate family from using the toilet.
Oh dear. Well, needs must. If we're going to be playing these tournaments at home, we do have to make accommodation for our wives, partners and children. So fair play to him for doing that. That is 4 out of 4. Well done, Josh. We give you that. Let's move it on to question number 5.
On opening night, what did Snakebite Peter Wright have painted on one side of his shaved head?
Oh, it was the NHS sign.
Yeah, Peter Wright displaying his colours and showing his support for the NHS. Don't forget, Thursday night, make sure you're out there clapping and supporting our NHS key workers and all their superstars. Neil, you can always rely on Peter Wright to bring that kind of thing to the fore and celebrate it with colour.
Yeah, and I think it's again, without the benefit of the darts at home, we wouldn't get to see that. So yeah, I thought it was really, really good that Peter he did that.
Okay, 5 out of 5. Let's have question number 6.
Okay, so I think that's enough on the tournaments of late. So here comes the change in direction.
Oh dear.
And we're going to start to talk about darts games that you can play at home. So question 6 is going to be in respect of the games that you play at home that end 0-1. So you've got 301, 501, 701, etc. So question 6, what are the minimum amount of darts needed to hit a 701 finish?
Minimum. Let me work that out.
So 501 is 9.
Yeah.
7. No, it's not about working it.
He's got a calculator out. You might have stumped him early doors. We'll give him a little bit of work. Oh, hello.
You need 13.
Okay, so can you talk us through the 13?
Well, you can kick off with a 180, which is obviously 3 darts.
I reckon he's looking at his dartboard.
Then you're down to 5. This is hard without a pen and paper. You've stitched me up here.
So we're talking 540 after 9 darts, yeah?
Yes, yeah, which is obviously then.
Oh, Josh, that is incorrect, sir. No, he's incorrect.
So if you've got 540 after 9
right,
darts,
yeah, 12. Yeah, then 161. Oh yeah, I was been making the mistake of adding on 200, thinking we can't take out 200 but then obviously I was thinking 141, which is 161. Yeah.
Neil, the reaction on the Zoom video chat that we're in at the moment is the precise reason that one day I would like us to move to videocast, because your celebration when you realised that Josh had got that wrong was akin to, I don't know, what we saw in Spain in the summer when Liverpool lifted that Champions League trophy. That was one celebration and a half, that, Neil.
I enjoyed that, I must admit.
Josh, you got one wrong, mate.
Yeah, well, I think I'll be getting a few more wrong, John. I'm hoping if I can get
you
to double figures.
You should not be getting that wrong.
I mean, it's the pressure, like I say, it's the pressure of a live situation.
And a 161 checkout would be?
Treble 20, treble 17 ball, or treble 19, treble 18 ball if you're feeling fancy.
Okay,
you
still got it wrong.
Can I just mention, it's not a live situation. There's 3 of us on this chat, nobody else.
Well, it'll be going out live.
Eventually. Right, here we go. Let's move it on to question number 7.
Okay, a bit quite easy again. This is about around the clock, which we played the other week. What are the minimum number of darts needed to complete this game where doubles and trebles count the same as singles?
So when you say that, are you meaning if you hit the treble, you've still got to hit every single number?
Yeah, so if you hit treble 1, it means you've hit 1.
Okay.
Gonna take another bit of work in this.
Well, it depends well, are you talking about the
format
around the clock?
The format that we played.
The minimum darts?
Yeah.
Just reread the question for my benefit, please, Neil.
What are the minimum number of darts needed to complete this game where doubles and trebles count the same as singles? So if you hit a treble 1, it means you've hit the 1 bed and you move on to 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything different.
I would have thought it's 22 because... Yeah, is it 22? Because you've got to hit the 20 and the 25 and ball.
Yeah, probably less complicated than it first seemed, I think.
Yeah, I think it's quite straightforward. So you've got to hit numbers 1 to 20 and then the outer ball and the inner ball. So 22.
I wanted to make sure after my faux pas on the last question, though.
Okay, 6 out of 7. Let's move it on to question number 8.
Okay, again, relating to around the clock. What are the minimum number of darts needed to complete this game where doubles and trebles count as doubles and trebles? So with this format, you finish on the 20. You don't need to get the outer ball, inner ball. So what are the minimum number of darts needed to complete this game where doubles and trebles count as doubles and trebles, finishing on 20?
Ooh. That's a tougher one, that.
That's the idea. So part of the reason for these questions is while we're not encouraged to go out of the house, is it might give people some ideas of what games to play, and at the same time we can have a laugh at Josh's expense.
As ever. Right, Josh, you've had a little bit of thinking time. What's going through your head at the moment, mate?
Well, I'm trying to just work it out because there's obviously all different permutations. If you kind of hit 1, I don't know. I'm thinking my instinct is saying 4, but I could be wrong there. I'm just trying to work out, and I'm trying to make a few notes on my Word document that I've got open here.
Word document, aka
Google.
You beat me to it.
I think it's number 4, but I don't know. I don't know for definite.
Did you actually understand the question? Because 4?
Yeah.
I don't get that. Neil, talk to us.
The answer is 8.
Oh, it's even less than
So-
I thought then.
So if you get treble 1, you
Yeah.
move to 4.
Yeah.
If you
What about double 4?
If you get treble 4, you move to 7, etc., 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 up to
What
20.
about you get double 4? What about if you get double 4?
Yeah, but I said the minimum, so you're hitting trebles here.
Yeah, he did say the minimum required.
No, but you
So-
could. What I'm
You go
saying.
1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, and then you finish on the 20.
Yeah, but you go treble 1 to go to 4, then you at double 4 to go to 9, then you at single 9, then you at double 10,
I
which
don't know
is
what you're
20.
talking about. I don't know what you're
No,
talking about.
you hit treble every single time, surely.
Yeah. So if you hit treble, you move up 3 numbers.
Yeah, but if you hit a double, you move to. If
2
you hit a double
numbers.
4.
Forget doubles. He's asking the minimum amount of darts. Forget doubles.
No, but it's still minimum amount of darts is 4, because if you hit the double 4, you go to 9. Because if you hit the double 4, it's 8, you go to 9.
Yeah, but if you hit treble 4,
Yeah.
what do you go to?
7.
That's,
Because it's 3, 4, 5, and 6.
no, if you hit treble 4, you go to 13, because you've hit 12.
Not in my game. Anyway.
That's the way. That's the rules of it.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll see about that. Okay. So that was wrong anyway. Well,
I'm not sure.
What a shambles.
I'm right, but
What a shambles. Right, I'm putting that down as, I don't know what to put that down as.
correct.
it's incorrect and it's 6 out of 8.
Right, we're staying there incorrect. We'll have a chat afterwards. For the love of God, let's move it on to question number 9.
What can you tell me of how the game Shanghai works?
It's
So I
when
just
you're
want
aim-
I just want you to tell us roughly how Shanghai the game is, the format of the game.
well, you're aiming 3 darts at the same number, but you're going for the single, treble, and the double of each target. So, say 20s, you're going single 20, treble 20, double 20.
Okay. So how would you always go for the same number, or would you move it on?
No, you don't go for the same number. So you might start at, I don't know, number 15 and go for the treble 15, single 15, and double 15. Then you move it on to 16 or 14, and you see how many points you get per. But you have to hit that segment to get any points. So if you hit the 16, say if you're going for 16, you hit number 8. You don't score 8 points, for example.
Okay, we'll give you that.
So the way this is working on our Zoom chat, Neil is giving me the thumbs up whenever he is satisfied that that Josh has got the right answer, or the thumbs down whenever he thinks he's got the wrong answer. Took quite a long time for you to be satisfied there, Neil.
Yeah, I'm also doing a lot of laughing, watching him squirm as he's trying to answer the questions.
Lovely.
So this is my description of Shanghai. Each player takes a turn throwing 3 darts, which I think he said, to score the highest score possible. Only the darts that land in the target number for each round counts towards the score. So if you're throwing at ones and you get a treble and 2 singles, you'd score 5. Doubles and trebles count as 2 and 3 times the score if you hit that target. You go round from 1 to 20. You said you can start on 15. That's fine. It depends on the way you do it. So the highest score at the end wins. The only thing that will trump it is if you do hit Shanghai, which is a treble, a single, and a double.
Excellent stuff. Well, if you're looking for a game of darts to play at home, there's a full and frank explanation of Shanghai from Neil. 7 out of 9. Let's move it on to question number 10.
On a similar line, can you tell me what you know about the game Halve It?
Halve it? Never heard of it. Pass.
Oh, that bodes well. That is a pass. That is
You don't want to have a guess?
that is incorrect. Neil, tell us
No,
about
I
Halve
don't have
It.
a clue.
I've played Halve It.
Have you?
Yeah, John, have you played Halve It?
No.
Okay, so this game can be played by 2 or more players. The players first select the numbers to play and then draw out a table to record the number and space for each player. The purpose of the game is to hit the number beginning with number 1. If a player does, the number score is recorded against his name. If he misses a subsequent one, so if he gets so when he's aiming for 1, if he gets a treble 1 and a 1, he gets 4, yeah? Next throw, he's aiming for 2. If he hits it, it gets added to the 4. If he doesn't hit a 2, it gets halved. So from 4 to 2. The player with the highest score at the end wins. And again, you normally go around the clock and do 1 1 to 20.
Well, there's another game, Neil, Josh, that we can all practice at home.
I don't think I'll be bothering playing that one, John.
Oh, half it I've played. I think it's quite a good game, half it.
Okay, let's move on. Let's have question number 11.
Tell me what you know about the game Killer.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Killer.
It was a song by Seal, wasn't it?
So that's when you've got your own designated number. So I think you throw at first with your wrong hand usually, and you hit any number. So say if you're at 16, that's your number. You've then got to hit it, I think, 3 times. Obviously, trebles can count for more and doubles count for more. When you've then hit your designated 3, you're playing against opposition who've got their own numbers. You then go for their numbers and try and eliminate them. And then obviously it's the last person standing that wins the game.
Yeah, that is correct. I've got the thumbs up from Neil. Killer. Neil, Killer seems to be a game that can be applied to lots of different sports. I remember you and I playing Killer on the pool table at our local football club.
I think we have played it on the pool table as well. And I think Josh gave a fairly good description of what Killer in darts is all about. Once you've got your own number, then you can start to shoot at the others, and you normally get 3 or 5 lives each. So if you hit the 3 lives or 5 lives of your opponent, then you tend to win. I think it can be played up to about 5 people. Well done.
Okay, 3 wrong so far. Let's have question number 12.
Hare and Hounds.
Hare and
It's a game that can be played on a dartboard. Can you explain to me the very simple format of Hare and Hounds?
By the look of his face, he can't. But Josh, over to you.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm trying to just think to have a wild stab, but there's nothing in the name that gives me any sort of vague ideas. So I'm going to have to pass on that one as well.
Neil, just before you give us the answer, I'm just going to interject. So Josh said that there's nothing in the name that kind of gives him a hint. I'm going to have a stab. Hare and Hounds suggests to me, the hounds always chase the hare, don't they? So I'm gonna have a. I'm not gonna be able to give you specifics because I've never heard of it myself. But it's got to be something to do with chase, isn't it? It's got to be chasing the other person or trying to replicate what they've done. That's the sort of lines that I'm going with.
Very good. So this game involves the hare, who is the player that starts the game, and the hound, who is the hare's opponent. The players have to play clockwise by hitting each thing on the dartboard. The hare starts from number 20 and the hound starts at number 5. The aim is that the hare returns to 20 in a clockwise format before being caught by the hound. So John was... I'd have given John the answer.
I get a point for that. Look, that's the first ever point I've earned in Challenge Josh.
Well done, John.
Lovely stuff. Excellent.
But starting on 20 and the hound starting on 5 for me doesn't give you enough.
Bit of a head
you could
start.
get caught really quickly, couldn't you? So,
yeah.
So hare and hounds, Josh. There you go.
Excellent. Every day's a school day, Josh.
Yeah, you learn something new every day.
Okay, Neil. Let's have question number 13.
Okay, so the next 2 questions relate to sports that Josh is very keen on, as well as darts. So the first one is football.
Oh.
So can you tell me, Josh, how you play football on a dartboard?
Oh God, I've heard.
I don't think he could tell you how to play football on a football pitch, but anyway, go on.
Oh God.
He told me he was the best keeper in the county.
Neil, can I just ask? Is there any VAR in this game of football?
No VAR.
Right, Josh, have a think.
Oh God, I've heard of this before. I'm trying to think back.
Josh may try and install VAR if he doesn't get it right, and then wants to challenge it later. But
it's something. I think it's something to do with if you hit a double. I think you've got to aim at doubles. I think, and if you hit a double, that counts as a goal. And I think whoever throws first, you've got to throw at the ball or something like that to see who throws first. So then, say if you hit a double, that counts as a goal. Then the second player throws for a double. And then I think basically you can score on the same double more than once. And I think that's a game. And I think it's first to 10 goals or something is the winner. You've got to hit 10 doubles.
The Julius Caesar thumbs up has arrived from Neil. Neil, do you want to take us through it?
He's done quite well, to be fair. So he got there in the end. Nearest the ball. Whoever wins nearest the ball takes possession of the ball first. Once you have possession, you keep the ball until the other player takes possession by hitting the bullseye. So if you hit the bullseye first, Josh, you're in possession of the ball, and I can't get that off you until I've hit the bullseye. Once you're in possession, you score a goal by hitting any double on the board, and any double that you hit counts as one goal. And you are quite right, it's the first to 10 goals.
In the sport of football darts, Neil, at what point in the game can Josh stand up and demand the manager resigns immediately? When does that come?
It will only be a matter of time based on recent history, I should imagine. So, but yeah.
Okay, well, there's another game for us all to try out at home. Let's move on to question number 14.
So another sport that Josh, he actually plays this one.
Well, in the loosest sense of the term, I think, if you're going to...
So it's got a slight twist to it. It's Australian cricket.
Oh.
So can you tell me, Josh, how Australian cricket works on a dartboard?
Australian cricket? I'm not...
I would imagine...
The only cricket I know in darts terms, this could be wrong. I know that cricket's about closing certain numbers, as they call it. So you're playing with numbers 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, and the inner and outer ball. And to close a number, you have to hit the three of the same numbers. If you're going for 15, whether it be single, triple, or double, you've got to hit all of the three numbers to close that number. And then whoever wins, or whoever's got the most numbers closed at the end of the rounds, wins. But it's got to be between 20 to 15, and then the inner and outer ball. That's the only cricket I know.
So that sounds like a really, really convincing answer.
Oh.
But it's wrong.
That is incorrect. Neil, do you want to explain to us why that is incorrect?
Each player goes one dart towards the bullseye. Closest to the bullseye either elects to bat or to bowl. The batsman throws first, and he tries to score as many points as he can with his 3 darts. So you try and get 180. After every set of 3 darts, which is an over, you take the total score and you subtract 40. So if you get 180, you add 140 to your score. If you get 37, you add 0 to your score. Okay, so that's the way the batsman scores runs. It's his total darts in each over minus 40. Bowler, who throws after the batsman, tries to get the 10 wickets as quickly as possible. To get wickets, the bowler either has to hit the outer ball, the 25, to get 1 wicket, or the inner ball to get 2 wickets. If the bowler throws outside and above the treble circle on the board, then those runs get added to the batsman's score. So if you hit a single 20 in the section between the treble 20 and the double 20, the batsman gets those totals. So the batsman throws, and it's his total score minus 40 for every 3 darts. The bowler gets wickets by hitting the inner and outer ball.
Well, there we go. That's as comprehensive as a description as we can get for Australian darts. The other crucial thing, though, Neil, that you've forgotten with the game of Australian cricket on a dartboard as opposed to the English game on the dartboard, in Australian cricket darts, you are allowed to carry a small piece of sandpaper in your pocket and just make sure that your darts are as sharp as they possibly can be before you throw them. That's the only thing that you forgot from your description, Neil.
Controversial.
Okay, so that's 5 wrong so far out of 14. There's been some tough questions, but let's see, Josh, if you can finish in flames of glory as we move on to the last question, question number 15.
Okay, last game that people can play at home during lockdown. Diddle for middle. I really wanted to. There's also one called Mickey Mouse, but I couldn't quite understand or explain it. So diddle for middle is the last question.
Diddle for middle. I've never heard of that one, I've got to say. Diddle for middle. Well, diddle for middle. I'm guessing if it says middle, it's something related to the bullseye. That's all. It's something to do with aiming at the bullseye. It's middle of the board. I don't know. Apart from that, I've never heard of the game. So
I'm going to chip in with a little bit of an educated guess before Neil tells us whether it's the right or the wrong answer. When you're faced with a multiple choice question, so if you're at a quiz night and it could be either A, B, or C as the answer, the common phrase is, if you're not sure, you go middle for diddle. You always choose B because it's the middle one, and it could, you've got as good a chance as any by saying A, B, or C. But the phrase middle for diddle kind of reflects choosing the middle option when you're not sure. That's probably not helping with describing the game. But Neil, I'm still waiting on a thumbs up or a thumbs down from your good self. I think it's going to be a thumbs down, isn't it?
Well, I'm still waiting for an answer. So.
Well, it's aiming at the bullseye, and then then it'll be a total guess though, because I've never heard of it really. So
that is incorrect. Neil, fill us in.
Quite a simple concept. It's a game of 501. You start the game by having to double in, and once you've doubled in, you can only score points by hitting the middle of the board from the bullseye out to just below the treble ring on the dartboard. When you get down to 38, 36, 40, you then need to double the finish. So it's double in. You play within that very small circle within the dartboard, and then it's double out to win the game. Fairly simple. Diddle for middle.
Double in, double out. Is it double in, double out in Dublin though, or can you play it in?
Well, only if you live there, because it won't be for us at the moment.
Just before we announce the final scores, just a reminder, Neil's given us some great ideas of games that we can play at home on the dartboard. Don't forget, there is a really popular game that you can play at home on the dartboard called 501, and I would suggest you stick to that.
I concur with John.
Josh, that is 6 wrong, 9 out of 15.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm quite happy because I got the 5 darting questions right at the start, that's what I was interested in. So I'm quite impressed I managed to get 4 of the other ones, to be fair. There was some, I would say, good questions, but I was more devious, I think.
So there's 2 things. One, I have to give credit to mostdartsgames.com, where I got a lot of the information from, so thank you to them. And secondly, it was a bit of fun to put you under a little bit of pressure, but it was more to create awareness for people that might be looking for, or our listeners that are looking for slightly different games to play at home.
That's good. To be fair, I've played Killer quite a lot, and the cricket I described, obviously it was the wrong one, but I've played that a few.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. How we went down one garden path and then kind of hit the gate.
Things I was quite impressed with my description. I thought I'd done that quite well, and it's completely wrong. But no, all good fun.
Just on the subject of different games that we can play, Josh, I bet the sales of the Nexus dartboard have rocketed in the last few weeks, with people looking to play their darts in a slightly different way.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure they've gone through the roof, John. I mean, the great thing with the Nexus dartboards is they are interactive, so you can have your own little community, really. I know Darts Planet TV are quite a big entity, and they've got a real kind of community there who all play each other in various tournaments. We've seen Leighton Bennett playing some of them, but I think the fact that you can still interact with people millions, thousands of miles away, as we've seen with Taylor and Suzuki playing 6,000 miles apart. And I think the darts at home, which we mentioned earlier with the likes of Phil Taylor, Raymond van Barneveld, Mikuru Suzuki and Fallon Sherrick, I think that's only enhanced the popularity of the soft tip game.
Okay, well, there we go. That is the end of this episode's challenge. Josh scores 9 out of 15, and we look forward to next episode.
Challenge Josh.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry, or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for all the latest news and insight into the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329 and leave us a message, and we may play it live on air. Now back to the show.
Hello everybody, I'm Glenn Durrant and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Right then, gentlemen, let's get some news.
the news.
Right, Josh, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we've got a few news items to discuss, particularly on the BDO, but I want to come to that last, if we may. Let's have a look at some of the news coming out of the PDC. Talk to me about the World Match Play.
Yeah, well, the World Match Play, as we know, John, it's the next major event on the calendar at the end of July from the Winter Gardens. There's a lot of uncertainty about whether the tournament will go ahead, and if it does indeed go ahead, will it go ahead behind closed doors? I think the likelihood of it being played in front of a crowd is very remote. I cannot see that happening. But the PDC released an update last week about the future of the World Match Play, and it was as follows. And they said, as with all PDC tournaments at present, we remain in regular contact with the UK government in relation to updates regarding the regulations and are constantly monitoring the situation. And they've basically announced that the PDC will confirm on or before Friday the 5th of June a decision in relation to the planned World Match Play, whether it will go ahead, whether it will be rescheduled, or whether it will go ahead but behind closed doors. So there'll be more clarity about that by 5th of June or before. But I think the likelihood of it being held with a crowd is extremely remote, given the social distancing measures that are currently enforced in the UK.
Neil, just on that point with the social distancing, I don't wish to do down anyone who works behind the scenes at the PDC or is in charge of putting on these tournaments on the stage, behind the stage, whatever. But just thinking out loud and knowing what I know about the darts, I think darts for the players and the officials would be a lot easier to practice. Forget a crowd, all right, we'll be doing it behind closed doors. But the game of darts itself, I would imagine it'd be a lot easier to practice social distancing than football, for example.
Yeah, and you're talking about, at the moment, you can go out and play a round of golf, or you can go out and play a game of tennis with one other person from your household. So potentially having a game of darts, I don't see as too different to that. Obviously, you've got the officials and you've got the scorers as well. So there'll need to be some thought as to how they go about it. But I would have thought it, as you say, it's probably an easier problem to resolve than a team sport such as football.
And Josh, with your work with Sky, obviously you're used to being at the events and being backstage, working with Sky, seeing how the film crew's set up, seeing how the directors, the commentary team, where they're positioned in a venue. What are your thoughts on all of these key people behind the scenes being able to practice social distancing while still bringing us the darts?
I think it will be possible. It may not be the same level, the same quantity of people behind the scenes, but there needs to be some, because obviously it takes a lot of people to put the production together and make sure that if it is being broadcast, it's still done in the manner we want, which is obviously a high quality broadcast. So in terms of media, I think there will be if there are any media, which I'm not sure if there will be for these tournaments, I think it will be very minimal. It will be restricted because obviously you have to practice the social distancing, and there isn't the necessity for the media to be there, apart from those who are maybe hosting the tournament. We've seen obviously BT Sport today with the Bundesliga. We saw Owen Hargreaves. He was as a pundit from his own home. I think there are only two people in the studio for the Bundesliga on BT Sport today. So there might be a couple of key people on site for these tournaments, but I don't think they'd have the media presence we've had for other tournaments because it would be safe to do so under the current measures.
Just thinking out loud, some of the problems that they would have to overcome, which I think would be fairly easily solved. I'm thinking about things, Josh, like having separate tables for the players to put their drinks on and their darts on. Obviously, we don't want them sharing the jug or the pouring glasses of water for each other. Just little things like that I'm sure the PDC are giving a lot of thought to with regards to how they will proceed.
Well, that shouldn't be an issue because I think for the World Cup of Darts, which is obviously a team event, in the World Cup they have two separate drinks tables, so each team have their own table. So if it's Holland against Scotland, Scotland will have their table, Holland will have theirs. So that shouldn't be an issue at all.
You could have two separate boards spaced apart, one playing one playing the other, and the scorer walking between each one.
You could, although I think today I saw the return of the German Super League. Now, we know Germany are slightly ahead of us in terms of the easing of their restrictions, but we had the German Super League returning today, and it was darts as we know it. Two players playing in the same venue. I think there was no media present, but there was a referee, a scorer, and I think there was someone also making sure behind the scenes that people were adhering to the social distancing, the 2 metre guideline. So I think, as we've mentioned before, I think darts is probably easier to introduce these measures compared to, say, something like football, which is obviously a contact sport. So I'm hoping in the not too distant future we can return to competitive darts, albeit behind closed doors.
Okay, yeah, that'll be interesting to see the setup and how the PDC proceed with that. Talking of social distancing, all caused, of course, by the coronavirus. And Carl Anderson, Josh, one of the most high-profile casualties of the coronavirus. Fortunately, he has recovered, but it's been a long old slog for Carl, isn't it?
It has, yeah. I mean, he returned to Australia when the PDC announced that there would be the postponing of the events in March, and he was very unfortunate, Carter, to catch that. Fortunately, his family back home in Australia didn't, but he had to self-isolate away from his wife and child, which is obviously very tough for him. And I think he said after a week or so, he felt that the symptoms had gone, but he was still testing positive for the virus. And I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks until we managed to get over the symptoms, and he tested negative. So obviously a period of real uncertainty for Carl. He's had it tough over the last 18 months, as I alluded to on the previous episode. So fortunately, he has recovered, and he did compete in the PDC Home Tour the other week. He didn't progress through, but he did win his last match against Dirk van Duijvenbode. It was just great to see Carl back healthy, throwing darts again, and I'm very glad for him and his family.
Yeah, good news for Carl. He probably kept himself sharp and in shape, Josh, at home by playing games of diddle for middle and half and half and cricket darts and things like that. What do you reckon?
I'm sure that was the top of his priorities, John, yeah.
Okay, Josh, sad news. Stuart Leach passed away following a recent battle with cancer.
Yeah, very sad news that emerged a couple of days ago, John. He was most well known, really, for qualifying for the Auckland Darts Masters. I think he faced Adrian Lewis about 2016. So, yeah, very sad news and thoughts to Stuart's family.
Josh, just in the break there, you were mentioning a couple of other stories that you wanted to bring to us. What have you got for us?
Well, the main one, I've mentioned the German Super League that returned today. We saw Gabriel Clemens and Nico Kurtz, who both featured at the World Championship. Gabriel Clemens, the most high profile. So that returned today, which is encouraging signs for the PDC. And, the other breaking news that we've got is from the PDC Home Tour, John. Now, we mentioned Gary Anderson. Neil included it in Challenge Josh. Gary initially was unable to compete in the Home Tour due to his dodgy Wi-Fi, but that has been resolved with his broadband provider. He's competed tonight on night 30, and he has breezed through to the last 32 stage, dropping just 4 legs against Dirk van Duijvenbode, Dimitri van den Berg and Kim Huybrechts. Beat Dirk van Duijvenbode and van den Berg 5-1 and beat Kim Huybrechts in the decider 5-2. Wasn't vintage Gary Anderson. I think he averaged 89 against van Duijvenbode, 93 against van den Berg and 93 against Huybrechts, but still very good. Well, still good enough for Gary to progress. So well done to him. We'll be seeing him in the last 32.
Yeah, well done to Gary. Onto the last 32 stage. After all these darts at home group games, we're still only on the onto the last 32. Josh, when is the planned final for this competition, Josh?
I don't know the exact date, but it's early June, John. So I think there's
this year or next year.
Well, who knows? But they're planning to have an 8-day break after Monday night when the last 32 is completed.
Okay. Then
obviously there'll be 32 players. So all the winners will then progress through to 8 more groups of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Then the 8 group winners will progress, and then there'll be 2 groups of 4. The top 2 from each group will then progress to the final 4, and then there'll be a sort of champions group, and the winner from those 4 players is then crowned the PDC Home Tour champion. So it's not a knockout tournament; it's still in the group stage format.
Okay, good. Well, we'll keep our eyes on that, and hopefully by the time we record next time, we'll be able to tell you who the winner was. Josh, probably the biggest story that we need to bring to our listeners now. BDO, I'm sure lots of them have already heard the goings-on, going backwards and forwards, but Josh, give us the very latest on the situation at the BDO. Yeah,
well, we reported on the last episode, John, that Des Jacklin had announced his resignation as BDO chairman. He issued a very brief statement on the official BDO website, but then went on a bit of a explosive diatribe on his own Facebook page, revealing the reasons for his departure and almost absolving himself of any blame. Well, it was then revealed on the 20th of April, remarkably, that Des Jacklin had been voted back onto the BDO Board of Directors after receiving the backing from 66% of the county, which I find astonishing myself. It was initially claimed that he would not be returning as a chairman, and he would be overseeing the finance side of it, which is ironic considering they announced a loss of £468,000 last year, but that's another matter. And 24 hours later, he was confirmed as the chairman after receiving unanimous vote from the new board, ironically, which he helped appoint. So it's a farcical set of circumstances, really. I'm lost for words at the BDO's decision-making and those involved. I think they should hang their heads in shame, quite frankly, because the job he's done and the shambles he's presided over, really. I'm astonished that he's been allowed back into the fold, and he's announced a new set of stringent measures. Again, he seemed to be highlighting social media as the reason for the BDO's downfall, which is not the case. And ironically, he's been involved in a social media dispute with a number of BDO or England darts representatives over the last couple of days. I feel for those involved in the BDO. From a playing perspective, there's a lot of uncertainty there, and I don't think it's going to improve the situation. And just last week, it was confirmed that the BDO's commercial branch, anyway, the British Darts Organisation Enterprise Limited, they've announced their intention to file for liquidation. So the situation doesn't look like it's improving there.
Neil, where do we go with this? I mean, the BDO has been a subject of, well, let's be honest, comedy for quite a while now. And when Des left, there was a little bit of a feeling of, okay, we're through this part of our history. Let's move on. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. Let's bring someone in, freshen it up, to have a new angle of attack, and turn the BDO into the BDO that we all want to see back. And then, a couple of days later, we get this news, and it's just back to square one again. I'm absolutely astonished, Neil. Absolutely astonished.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have predicted the turn of events that there were, and I think who I feel sorry for out of all of this is the players and the officials, because the organisation is clearly is had a terrible time. It's had some bad press, and really seems like it's very disorganised. And I think the main sufferers are the players and the officials. So I just hope it gets better for them. More than anything else.
But the worrying thing is, there's nothing really that's gone on in Des's chairmanship to really give people much hope of things being turned around. You can talk about the move of venues to the Indigo at the O2. Well received by a lot of players, well received by a lot of fans and supporters. Sometimes they say a change is as good as a rest. I'm not going to class that as a negative. So perhaps that's one positive we can look forward. We can call upon from Des, but. That's really the only one that I'm scratching around to think of.
Yeah, it's difficult, John, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that Des Jacklin is culpable for all the crisis of the BDO, because he inherited a very difficult situation. I think there can be no doubt about that, and there's obviously his predecessors. They're also culpable for the situation the BDO find themselves in. But there's been a lot of empty promises, a lot of statements that, we've got sponsorship sorted, we're in a good place, we're on the up, but there's no tangible evidence of that. And the man I feel most sorry for in all of this is Wayne Warren, the BDO world champion. When you can think that in the previous 3 years, Glenn Durrant received £100,000, so £300,000 over a 3-year period for winning back-to-back Lakeside titles. And then Wayne Warren, really, the age of 56, I think, achieves his darting dream, wins a world title, then gets told that he's not going to receive the £100,000, not even the £50,000 figure that had been touted around, but £23,000, which was the lowest figure for 30 years. So that disappointment. And then he thinks, well, to try and make up the prize money that he's lost out on, really, he's going to really try and have a prominent role on the exhibition circuit this year, because as BDO world champion, he would be a real figure that people want to see. Well, the coronavirus has put awfully a stop to that, with no exhibition for the foreseeable future. So someone like Wayne Warren, really, yes, he's got the honour, the clamour that comes with being a world champion, but from a financial side, he's been really badly hit by this. And I feel for Wayne out of all the people, really.
Neil, Des keeps making reference to the presence of social media and the bad press that the BDO have had on social media. I just can't understand his continued reference to social media. As far as I'm concerned, the BDO doesn't even have a presence on social media. Just looking at their Twitter account now, they've got 59,000 followers, which isn't a lot, let's be honest. And the last time they tweeted was on the day of the final, the World Finals, 12th of January this year. Wayne Warren on unbelievable feeling of becoming BDO World Champion. That was on the 12th of January. That was the last time they tweeted. So for Des to put such a high importance factor on the negative stuff that gets written on social media about the BDO, for me, it's absolute nonsense.
I think the best way to deal with it is to get your business plan sorted, and if you get your business plan sorted, your public relations will follow suit. So I think it's all very well blaming social media and people having a pop on that. Get your organisation sorted, and turn the opinions of people that are giving you that grief on social media. As you say, if they haven't tweeted for a few months, it's not really making the best use of they're not making the best use of social media either.
Okay, well, I mean, I feel like I say this every time we discuss the BDO, but all three of us, we hope and wish for a continued I don't know how to describe it, a raising of the ashes, the phoenix from the flames for the BDO, but it always seems like full storm after full storm after full storm. But we will keep our eyes peeled and see what happens. Josh, any more news for us?
No, that's all for this episode, John.
In the news.
Hi, this is John Lowe, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, let's finish the show with your questions. This is Josh's Twitter chatter. Okay, Josh, we've had a few questions come in via social media. We will never criticise social media, by the way. We appreciate all of our followers on the Josh's Dartistry Twitter account. Good or bad press. First of all, Woody at Woody Rudd. Questions come in. He said, "Love the show, guys. Love the banter." Thank you, Woody. Thanks for your continued support. He says, "Do you think the Scolia automatic scoring system would ever be used in the future across all boards on floor events for the Pro Tour? Or would you always need a referee watching every board, as discrepancies could be an issue?" Josh, your thoughts?
Well, I've seen Wayne Mardle in some of his darts coaching tutorials. He also uses the Scolia system in his practice room, and it's a great bit of kit, very reliable. And Wayne said he's not had any problems with it over the last few months he's had it. But it's a good question from Woody. I think certainly in terms of social distancing regulations at the moment, it would be quite useful because obviously it's automatically, it doesn't involve a referee having to be present. But I think there is a danger of discrepancies, and you need someone official to be looking over it. I think it's dangerous if it's left solely to the two players. There needs to be an official present. I think nothing can beat the reliability of that human aspect. So I think it's certainly something they could look to introduce, but I still think there has to be a referee watching over proceedings, even if he wasn't actually at the board. But it's certainly something to look forward to in the future. I mean, technology is advancing at a rapid rate, as we know, and I think it's certainly something that will be of great use for the PDC, not just now, but in the future.
Neil, we don't really want to do away with all human input and human officials in darts, do we?
Yeah, whilst this advancing technology is great, as most of these things are, I do think the need for human oversight is there. I don't fully trust a fully automated dart system, if I'm honest. So, good product, great for use in practice and playing online as well, but I'd still rather see the human officiating.
When you started with great in practice and nice in theory and this, I almost thought you were talking about VAR then, Neil, with your.
Oh no, that's another technical. That's a technological. What's the opposite to advance?
Backward step.
Backward step. So even today, controversy on that front.
Okay, let's move on. Spaniel at NickBar180 on Twitter. They've been in contact. They've asked two questions actually. Let's go with the first one. What's the most mind-blowingly impressive match you've ever witnessed? Now, I'm going to take it that they haven't said it in person, right? So we're going to allow televised matches as well. Josh, you've been to obviously working in the field, you go to a lot more live darts than Neil and I do. So I'm going to allow us to include games that we've seen on television. I'm going to go first. I'm going to go. Josh, you'll be able to tell us all about this one, actually. I'm going to go for the Raymond van Barneveld match against Michael van Gerwen in the 2016 World Championship, last 16. For me, that will always live long in the memory. It was backwards, it was forwards, to and fro, and I thought that night was absolutely sensational. Yeah,
it was a magical night. I mean, Barney was given no chance. Van Gerwen had won 25 games on the trot on TV prior to that. That was one of the best matches I've seen at Ali Pali. But ironically, John, I was going to pick Van Gerwen against Van Barneveld, but the year after.
Okay.
Obviously, for obvious reasons, I preferred the one you've just chosen because Raymond van Barneveld ran out as a winner.
I thought you might say that.
But in the 2017 semi-finals, they met again, and Van Barneveld was beaten 6-2, averaged 109.34. I think it's 67% of doubles and won 2 sets. Van Gerwen averaged over 114 over 8 sets. It was probably the best performance I've ever seen from any player, and to do it in the World Championship semi-finals, just makes it all the better. And I think that was a game that really broke Barney's belief, because it was one of the best performances of his career, and he got nowhere near Van Gerwen. So that, for me, in terms of standard, has to be the best performance I've ever seen.
Okay, so there's two games there. Mine was based on the romance of seeing Barney beat the young up and comer, and then there's Josh's match there, which provided some absolutely fantastic stats and some real sort of display of absolutely incredible high scoring darts. Neil, what have you got for us? The most spine-tinglingly exciting game of darts you've ever witnessed?
I think I'm going to plump for Van Gerwen v Cross in the 2018 World Championship semi-final. So, John, I think I actually watched that game at your gaff.
It was
a tight affair, loads of drama. Van Gerwen missing doubles all over the place, and Cross finally getting over the line. It was a classic.
I was there that night, and that's probably the best game I've seen live. I think there was football on the Saturday night, so the darts didn't start till 8, and that was the second semi-final. I think it was gone midnight by the time
it was late. I remember it being late, yeah.
Yeah, I missed my last train. Luckily, Paul, my boss at Sky, gave me a lift back. Otherwise, I'd have been stranded at Ali Pally.
Josh, I know you did a feature on your website recently, didn't you? Not too long ago, about some of the best matches of all time. I'm sure all three of those matches that we've mentioned would have featured in that article. Interesting that nobody mentioned the 2007 PDC World Championship final, often lauded as the best World Championship final ever, between Phil Taylor and Raymond van Barneveld.
Yeah, that's my favourite game. I think it's the best game of all time, actually. But in terms of the question, it was just mind-blowingly impressive. It was outrageous, that 2007 World Final. But in terms of just impressive darts, and I almost interpreted that as in terms of the best standard, which is why I went for the Van Gerwen Barney in 2017.
With the world record average currently being, Josh, and held by
Michael Van Gerwen, 123.40 against Michael Smith in the Premier League, I think 2016.
So that's up there with the most impressive standard of dart. Didn't Peter Wright beat that, but not in a televised match recently? Wasn't it on a...
He beat in a Pro Tour event against Ratajski, 6-0. I mean, both of those were outrageous. To do 123 average in any format is impressive, but that was over, roughly, Van Gerwen was over 8 legs. I think he won 7-1, and Peter Wright was 6 legs. Whereas the Van Gerwen 114 average was over 8 sets of darts, which pips it for me.
Okay, Josh, the second question from @NickBar180. This is going to be directed at... Well, it says... I'm guessing it says going to be directed at you, as it starts off being a journalist. So I'm not a journalist, and Neil Connor certainly isn't. So let's direct this one to you. Being a journalist, do you keep your composure when a 9-darter is hit, or have you physically celebrated along with everyone else? Josh?
Well... I'm a darts fan first and foremost, and everyone loves to see a 9-darter, whether you're at home or whether you're at an event. If I was commentating, I probably couldn't celebrate along, but fortunately I'm not having to commentate. I'm behind the scenes, either in the press room or watching stage side. So I'm not running around with my shirt off celebrating, but of course we all get excited, and it's great in the press room when we see the PDC photographer Lawrence Lustig at the Ali Pally. Whenever someone hits 6 perfect darts, he races out of that room like a shot, just in case the 9-darter comes in, he can capture the shot. So, yeah, we all love to see a 9-darter, but I've never actively celebrated it in a press room. I've never seen a 9-darter live at an event before, I don't think. I was there as a fan when Dean Winstanley hit one against Vincent van der Voort quite a while ago now at the Worlds. But as a journalist as such, I've never seen a live 9-darter in the flesh.
No, neither have I. Neil, I don't think you have, either of you, in the flesh.
No, I haven't, no. But as I mentioned earlier, I was lucky to see Luke Woodhouse on the PDC Darts at Home Tour banging his 9-darter. I think it's the one thing in darts, isn't it, that really kind of gets you up off your seat. You see the first 3 land. When you see the second 3 land, they've really got your attention. And then darts 7, 8, and then that 9th, normally double 12. Really gets you off your seat, and it's the one thing that creates real excitement.
I'm always interested to see the reaction of the player and how they react to the 9-darter. There's some of them that go absolutely crazy, dancing across the stage, and then you'll find other players, I've seen Michael Van Gerwen hit them and just calmly walk back to the board, collect the darts and carry on playing. I know they're very, very good players. I know the standard now is absolutely incredible, but I couldn't stop myself leaping around like a lunatic if I hit a 9-darter, Josh.
No, and I think the one I mentioned, the Dean Winstanley, he ran off the stage. He went out of camera shot. We wonder where he'd gone. He'd fallen off because he was absolutely beside himself. But yeah, I think it depends on the player, but also on the state of the game. Because I've seen Van Gerwen go ballistic when he's hit 9 darters. I've seen Phil Taylor go mad when he hit his first ever one at the World Match Play. I've seen Barney not even celebrate, and then when he hit his first one at the Worlds, and the year after he was jumping around like he'd just won the lottery. So I think it depends on the match and who they're playing and the situation.
Yeah, but also I think we see a lot more 9 darters nowadays than we did years ago. So we see many on the Pro and European Tour. Less so on TV, but it's a lot more commonplace than it used to be. And these guys, the best players, are hitting 9 darters in training all the time anyway, aren't they?
How did I didn't get to see it, Josh? I haven't seen the footage. How did Luke Woodhouse celebrate his 9 darter? Did he climb on top of the kitchen counter and take his shirt off and whip it round his head, or was he quite reserved in his kitchen?
Well, compared to your comparison, he was quite reserved, John, but he was still awfully very excited. Even Gerwen Price was quite excited for him. I think you could hear Gerwen Price shouting, "Get in there," as if he did it himself. So it was nice to see that camaraderie. And yeah, obviously Luke was delighted, but he wasn't too distracted because I think the next leg he took out 127 for a 12 darter to win it. So it was outrageous darts, 114 average that game.
Business as usual. Okay, let's move on. Friend of the show and your colleague, Josh, he sent in the question. Raz Mirza, I think this question might be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'll ask it anyway and see what your reaction is. Raz asks, what are your thoughts on soft-tip darts? A lot more exciting, don't you think, Josh?
I don't know if it is tongue-in-cheek, actually. I know Raz was on reporting duty for the Phil Taylor-Fallon Sherritt game. And yeah, obviously it was a fantastic game of darts. I really enjoy the soft tip side of it, and I think the production that Sky, Paddy Power, Target have put together really adds value to it. I think that's what makes it. The only thing I would say is I know obviously the dimensions of the soft tip boards are different. I think in the US they're not as big, the trebles, but obviously the Nexus soft tip boards, the trebles are a lot bigger. The bullseyes are absolutely huge. I think even I could hit one of the bullseyes. But
let's not be silly.
Yeah, let's not overreact. Come on.
No, but I think the thing is, because the targets are so big, at times it can almost become complacent when a player can hit a 140 or 180. But I think in terms of entertainment, I really enjoy the soft tip side of it. I think the averages are huge. You're seeing more maximums, more ton plus checkouts. But I do think it's more the production value that we've seen from the darts at home than the actual soft tip side itself. But it's something different, isn't it? It's something different, and I enjoy the soft tip side. But for me, the steel tip is still the most exciting format.
Now, I know you've made reference to this before. The soft tip game does come with, added excitement and interest. And I know you've compared it in the past to, when other sports have come up with different formats, like the cricket with the 2020. It's something that you've spoken about before.
Yeah, and I'm all for the variation. So it's a long dart season, and it's good to have variety. I think the cricket is a great example of that. When they brought in the 2020, and people were like, well, I'm not sure about this, and now everyone loves going to the 2020 matches. So we spoke earlier about a darts at home event maybe being added to the schedule. Why not have one or two soft tip tournaments in there as well, to just keep things varied and fresh for people.
I think one good addition for the last couple of darts at home games, I think when Taylor and Barney played, more often than not, I think Phil finished on the ball in all but one leg, and I think Barney finished on the ball in all but 3 legs. And because the ball is such a big target, it's almost a shock if they miss the ball. Whereas when Phil played Makuru and Fallon Sherritt, they both agreed beforehand they wouldn't use the ball. So I think that made it a little bit more unpredictable. They still finished very well on the doubles, and the doubles are still bigger targets than a usual dartboard, but I think that improved the product because it's not as predictable, put it that way. Whereas if they were going for a ball, Taylor and Barney, it was almost impossible for them to miss, given how good they are. So I agree with Neil. I think the variety is important. I think the production has been great on the soft tip game, and I think it's really interactive and allows people to engage with their opponents even when you're competing thousands of miles apart, which in the current climate is ideal.
Okay, well, the soft tip game has always existed, but lockdown has certainly brought it a lot more to the forefront of people's minds. And it'll be interesting to see going forward if the powers that be make use of that particular format of the game any more than they have done in the past. Josh, that's all the questions I've got on Twitter. Have you got any more?
Yeah, I think that's all for this episode, John.
Wonderful. Thanks for your questions as ever. That was Josh's Twitter chatter. Okay, well, that brings us neatly on to the end of the show. Josh, when we first went into lockdown, the conversation that I remember the three of us having was, well, that signals the end of the JDP for a little while, because obviously with no darts, we're going to have nothing to talk about. But quite the opposite, mate. Just looking at my timer, we've been going for, after edits, it'll probably be a couple of hours now. Plenty for us to discuss.
Yeah, packed show. As I mentioned earlier, John, even though we haven't had any competitive ranking darts, we probably had more darts than we would have had in a usual PDC season. So the sport certainly hasn't suffered, and we've not been short of talking points, have we?
We certainly haven't. And Neil, other sports perhaps could in future look to how they can entertain us more than just the usual routes, I think.
Yeah, and I think they are, to be honest. I think at the moment, I think this came out of the blue, and there's been some really good ideas that have come up. Darts have probably been at the forefront of those ideas, but we're slowly starting to see other sport and leisure activities coming up with some fairly creative solutions. So, but yeah, congratulations to darts and the entertainment that they've continued to provide during a very difficult period.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done to everyone involved and trying to pique our interest and keep us involved in darts. Well, there we go, guys. That's episode 23 in the can. Josh, hopefully I can get this edited and out to you ready for upload ASAP, and we'll get this online. Don't forget, you can listen to the sort of back catalogue. There's plenty of other darts podcasts that we've done. As I say, we are on episode 23. We also record our show, The Bounce Out, every now and then, which is a slightly slimmed down format of the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Josh, obviously we've got no PDC calendar to look at going forwards, but I'm sure we'll all get together and put another show out fairly soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we will, John. As I mentioned there, I think there'll be an 8-day break after Monday of the home tour, but then it resumes for 11 more days. So early June it'll come to an end. So I'm sure just after that concludes, we'll regather and reflect on that and plenty of other news.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have news of when we can get back to some sort of normality. Not even sure what normality means anymore, but fingers crossed we can find our path there. Anyway, gents, Neil, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you, John. Take care, everybody.
And we'll see you again soon.
Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.